I'll call the Town of Mountain Falls Regular Board of Trustees meeting to order. The day is March 2nd. The time is 7 o'clock. We have a quorum, although I don't have Chris Quinn on. We'll see if he arrives later. At this time, if you'll please rise and we will have a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. All right. Before we begin, I would like to insert a couple of things for my executive privilege, which once in a while I get to exercise. I'd like to start this meeting and note the passing of former governor's husband and extend our sympathies to Barbara. Secondly, I'd like to say a couple of words in memory of Dick Bratton. Dick Bratton really, truly loved Green Mountain Falls. His heart was always in the right place when it came to the town, and he was sincere about his love for the town. Dick was my introduction to town government. I learned a lot from him, and even when he disagreed, he was a gentleman, and he was respectful, and he would come back to the table, and we could always talk, and I appreciated that. I was really glad when he jumped onto the Fire Mitigation Committee, which he was as dedicated to as his beloved trails. I'll miss talking hockey with Dick. And I'll miss seeing him at the meetings, whether virtual or live. Happy trails to you, Dick. And with that, I'd like to have just a couple of moments of silence to honor those that we have lost. All right, at this time, it's time for persons who are not present on the agenda to have their 3 minutes to discuss things and address the board. I have 3 people on my list tonight. Liz Ives, are you on?
Mayor Newberry, I'm letting her in right now.
All right, thank you.
She's in now.
All right, Liz, would you go ahead?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. All right, I am requesting or proposing that once El Paso County joins Teller County in blue status, that we resume in-person meetings along with the Zoom meeting, of course, for people who are out of state and are, landowners here. El Paso County is getting closer to that based on their public health records. We're pretty close to being at blue status. I'm hoping by next month we are. With that, I propose that the meetings be moved to Sally Bush to accommodate people with social distancing. People who want to be in person need to sign up by 4 p.m. like you have to sign up for your 3 minutes. And that they are screened at the door, which is simple enough to do. We have people in our community who obviously cannot join or are unable to join Zoom meetings, and they want to be involved and want to be heard. I also propose that this be reviewed at each and every board of trustee meeting until we are in person. Secondly, Angie posted on January 26th that the backhoe brakes were going to be fixed, needed to be fixed, and they were going to be fixed, and that then the construction debris on Olathe would be removed. And I'm just curious as to where we are on that project. And lastly, my last question is about the parking proposal going out to for an RFP if it is approved. Is that where is Minor Street and 17th and 14th on page 4 of the RFP application? Oh, that's what I had to state and ask of our Board of Trustees.
All right, thank you, Liz. We will revisit some of that later on in the meeting. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next person I have is Lamar Matthews. Matt, I saw Lamar. Is she on?
Oops, I forgot to unmute. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm sorry that I forgot to unmute. Several things I wanted to talk about, primarily about the parking. It was mentioned, referenced in our packet, that parking was part of the comprehensive plan in the top 10. It's actually in the top 11 opportunities in that list. It's number 7, and it says address parking in town. Also in that same top 11 opportunities is number 3, attract commercial growth, and number 10, incentivize tourists to stay in town. And these initiatives are just as important, I think, as addressing parking. I think it's important to listen to our commercial business owners who have grave concerns about this. And I think that if you're charging people to park, it does not incentivize them to stay a long time or to stay in town. So I have concerns about those two issues. In looking at the parking services agreement that was provided in our packet, number 3 talks about a 36-month contract, and that it can have any number of one-year renewals. So basically, it's an indefinite contract unless you stop it after 3 years. We were told in the packet that this would be a 2-year pilot, so I'm a little confused about that. As was made reference to earlier, number 7, under parking facilities in that same agreement, there's Minor Street, 17th, 14th. I think we need to be really careful about our contract and be sure it's accurate, and that we are not just taking somebody else's contract and using it. I don't see an escape clause in the contract, which is also concerning to me. And last but not least, one of the, I'll just mention also in the comprehensive plan, looking through it, everything that was said about parking was about visitor parking, overflow parking. Paid parking was never mentioned. And I also have concern about our events, like our antique.
Before the pandemic.
Our antique car show, our Bronc Day, Green Box. Are there going to be exceptions made? Will we be able to have this car show? Will we be able to have Bronc Day? Or is anybody who attends it going to be unable to park without being charged? Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, thank you. Now, Todd, I have you on the list for a comment, but as the chair of the Planning Commission, I'd like to invite you to collaborate, as you always do, with us when we come to this portion of the conversation on the contract, because you have so many comments on it. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's keep you on.
Should I summarize them for the group, or? Because, you know, it's
You can if you wish, but can do the same thing when we get to that item in the agenda.
okay. Yeah, let's go to item 5 then.
All right, so we will keep you on there. So that is public comment. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, which is to bring, you know what I skipped right over is a additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda. So let me go back there instead of going ahead. Or do you have any additions, deletions, or corrections to this agenda? I would actually like to move the presentation from Manitou School District to right after the consent agenda so that they don't have to stay through all business.
I'll second.
If there's no further discussion, all those in favor vote by saying aye.
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 That change passes to item number 2. Item 4, therefore, is the consent agenda. Bring into record accounts payable from February 1st through the 12th. Board of Trustees meeting minutes for February 16th. And approval of the attorney engagement agreement between the town of Green Mountain Falls and Wilson Williams. Board, would you like to bring the item out for discussion?
I'll move to approve.
I will second that. If there is no further discussion, all those in favor vote by saying aye.
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 Consent agenda is passed as presented. We have moved the Manitou Springs School District presentation up to item 5. Let me see who is here. I assume Chris Briggs Hale is on. Do we also have the superintendent tonight?
Yes. Hi, Jane.
Hi, and welcome.
Hi, Jane.
Hi, the floor is yours.
Great. Shall I get started?
Certainly. And just to let you know, Elizabeth, I'm happy to run the slides for you as well, if that's cool.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate that. Well, Chris Briggs Hale and I are thankful for this opportunity to speak with the Board of Trustees and the community. We wanted to just reach out. We know it's been some time. The last time I met with the Board of Trustees was about last August or so. Sorry, the August before last, when I first started in the role of superintendent. And so a lot has happened in this sort of time. I'm now in my 20th month as the superintendent of Manitou Springs School District, and just love every minute of this ability to lead in this fantastic community. And so we just thought it would be a good time, and would love it to the Board of Trustees to maybe potentially have this opportunity a little bit more often than that sort of long period of time. So if that's something that you all would be interested in, we'd love to continue this conversation just so that we can stay updated and informed. I see, am I sounding okay for everyone? Okay, great, thanks. So I will just kind of walk through, and Mr. Briggs Hale there, I know his long commitment to the community. He's gonna also share what's unique and specific about Ute Pass Elementary School. While we know that our students in all of the schools live and thrive in the areas that you all lead, we wanted to invite Chris tonight. So with that, I just wanted to kind of speak quickly about our core values. So Matt, if you'll advance to the next slide. Thanks. All right, we have 3 core values that are really grounded in our relationships, deep learning, and opportunity. This is a real fundamental aspect of how we make decisions, how we collaborate, how we come together, and really have been the cornerstone of the decision-making processes that we have gone through, especially as we've been working through this pandemic together. And so just thought I would share this with you when we are making decisions really asking, are we getting closer to these core values? How are we living these? And are we modeling these aspects through all of our decision-making processes? And I can wholeheartedly say that this has been a great unifying conversation with our leadership team, and how I hear staff and others speaking about these core values has really been exceptional. In this third slide, I wanted to just kind of share with you, I know it's super small, the font, and I'm happy to share these sort of one-pagers with you all. But on the left-hand column, you'll see sort of our strategic major improvement strategies. And those really are fundamentally connected to some of both the quantitative, the qualitative, just the relational capacities that we have been working towards. And really for us, all means all the time. And we're developing systems to support students and families so that they're experiencing a rich learning experience. The second aspect is feedback towards a culture of growth. And I won't read through all of these. And then just really focusing on high quality, good first instruction that looks at a balance between social emotional learning and culturally responsive practices. Really that spanning a whole lot of aspects. So it doesn't have to be just social emotional learning. That really should be a part of the whole child experience in the classroom. And then I just wanted to share sort of really quickly around some of, just as we're talking about what makes Manatee Springs School District unique. And when you see that sort of flow chart there, the top is I'll read it to you. It says, we're a small mountain town school district with big hopes and dreams for students, staff, and the community. And really leaning into the fact that what makes us unique and special is the aspect of us being small, and coming back to our core values of relationships, deep learning, and opportunity. We can do that in tremendous ways. And the last thing I'll say is on the right side of this one pager, strategic outcomes. At the very top, you're going to see, and there's some really big key indicators, but that all students will read at grade level or beyond. We are never going to set a goal that's only 80%. We are really shooting for 100% of students reading at a grade level or beyond. Literacy is an access point to the world, and we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can. So those are some goals that we're really shooting for, and I just wanted to share that with you. Also in the world of COVID, as we all know, let me just also add very quickly that part of this strategic outcome, and we'd love for you all to be a part of these conversations. I know that the principals are working towards these goals also, but that number 3 that bullet there says we will recruit and retain and develop the best staff in all positions. That is fundamental to us advancing as a school community and making sure we're realizing those goals. Because without these investment in our human capacity, then we're not going to be able to meet those goals. And so we fundamentally believe that investing in people in terms of professional development, high quality feedback, spending time with them is just so important to students having access to high quality experiences. Going back to the COVID impact on schools, and I know this is something that we've heard a lot about in the news and the media. I just want to commend, for example, Chris Briggs-Hale and his leadership. It wasn't until I think last week that or 2 weeks ago, that they actually had their first positive in the school system, and that we were able to mitigate the impact to the whole community by, oh, Madam, on the next page, sorry. We were able to mitigate that, and Chris with his team, that there was no community spread within the school. So as soon as we learned about that, we needed to quarantine the students and the staff who were involved. And really that was because of the strong partnership with our families. And we just have really appreciated that. His team and all of the teams across the school district have just been phenomenal in making sure that we are remaining in-person learning. We have had to adjust and adapt in different ways when the community spread across the county around November, December. We did move into some hybrid schedules for Chris at his school, but really they've been in person since August. And so sometimes when we hear these different aspects of schools not being in person, our schools have been open from the beginning. We have had some quarantine issues and things like that, and but we're really proud of the work. And of course, we would love to be fully in person from the start, but just navigating the realities. And so just want to say kudos to our families and to our staff for how flexible, and most importantly, our students. You know, they have really had to go from hybrid to synchronous, asynchronous, sometimes remote. And so I just want to say that our children are really exceptional. And the last option I wanted to talk about here was really that Fuel Ed. This is an online option. We did have some families who said, you know, it's really not feasible at this time for our child to be in school learning for various reasons. Most of the time connected to a family member at home, or the child being in this group of being a high risk health risk. And so we understood that, and we created this Fuel Ed option. And definitely a financial impact to the school district. We've remained good stewards of our dollars, and thankful for the community for that support. We have received over $1 million from federal stimulus package monies, and we just hold on to that very closely, making sure we're doing the right things with those monies, and don't take that for granted, and also making sure that we don't take a hit to our reserve. And I can tell you that we're spending wisely. We'll have a bit of an impact to the reserve, but not like I know that is happening in other spaces. And that's in large part to the ongoing support of our school community, both in the Ute Pass area, Manitou Springs, all of those aspects that we have had a healthy reserve over the years, so we didn't have to dip into those spaces. We have declining enrollment, but really that's most consistently connected to individuals wanting to homeschool during this time. For some families, going between remote or quarantine was really hard, and so some families just said, for now, we want to just want to be in homeschool, and or for other health reasons. So I do know that Mr. Briggs Hale and others are already starting to have waiting lists for the 21-22 school year, and we're looking forward to that. But we're going to continue to problem solve and collaborate and make sure that we're doing everything we can to maintain a whole school focus, whole child focus, collaborative partnerships with parents and students, making sure that we're taking care of our staff along the way. Thanks, Matt. If you just want to kind of go through the next photos, that'd be great. I just thought I would share some of the images there. Our students, you know, just having to wear masks, as we know, they've been tremendous. And the things that they have needed to do during this time, we're calling them, or I am, generation resilient, because they have learned and adjusted and adapted in ways that no generation of really students in this capacity have had to. Outdoor classrooms are a really important aspect. We're fortunate to live in a beautiful space. We're still doing fun activities. These picnic benches represent a donor who provided this is at Manitou Middle School, excuse me. And that just allows our kids to get outside. You know, if you think about today, in March 2nd, it's sunny. It was in the 40s and it was hot, and we're fortunate to live in such a beautiful community. I know Chris does the same thing. Thanks, Matt. You can keep going. Our performing arts are performing outside. We had actually a performance on the football field, soccer field today. You can see the picture below is Ute Pass Elementary School, and the students are doing some trail work. And so, you know, you see that experiential learning still happening every day. And kids, our students just love being at school. I think that Chris can speak about it when he has an opportunity too. I think that was some of the hardest parts is, not I think, I know, is that when we needed to move to quarantine, just that how much our kids wanted to be at school and how much their parents wanted their children to be at school. It was really devastating, but at the same point we had to balance making sure we were moving forward with the right health precautions. You can see this is the first time I've ever seen in that picture above some first graders, their portraiture, and the parents I spoke with, they're going to hold on to these because not that we want to necessarily recap all of these events of this year, but you can see their portraiture includes a mask. And so, you know, just holding on to that moment and not forgetting how resilient our students have been. So I'll turn it over to Chris, and if he wants to speak to the opportunities that are happening at Ute Pass Elementary.
Yeah, just very briefly, you know, the staff at Ute Pass has just done an absolutely amazing job this year. It's certainly we had to adjust and pivot in many ways because of the pandemic. But you know, that's one thing we have done for many, many years. We have many alumni on this Zoom call right here, right now. So we love that, and it means a lot. We like Dr. Domingue said, we've had school fully in person. We've really been living those core values. One of the things that's really been driving us this year is equity and access, and making sure that by staying open, we're providing that access and equity of education to all children, because for some children, being able to learn remotely can be a real challenge. So that has been a major focus for ours, and we're very pleased and happy with the systems guidance that we've gotten from Dr. Domingue and from her team down in the central office. They've done truly an amazing job. We've really been focusing on reading this year, and focusing on closing the gaps to make sure that, you know, the children lost some ground last year, and the team, we have seen some above the national average growth in some of the assessments that we've been using recently, and that has not been easy for these teachers. That they have really focused. We have redone our schedule to really make sure that our kids are getting what they need in reading. I also want to echo what Dr. Domingue said about strong partnership with our families. I couldn't be prouder of our community. We are open and have stayed open for the majority of this year, really because of all of you and because of families really working in close partnership. It seems almost ironic that in the time of a pandemic, when we're doing this Zoom thing, I think every staff member would say that we feel closer to our community and that our communication with them has become more personal and authentic, just because we have to. We have to engage with everybody's individual circumstance. And that's been one of the silver linings.
Mhm.
I'll also say kids have been very resilient. They complained when we went to remote. I actually got, first time in my career, almost 30 years, I got an email from a kid complaining about the fact that we went remote, and that was a win. We love that. Our focus on environmental learning and outdoor learning and experiential learning has really been a win for us this year because of the pandemic. And as many of you know who went to school at UPass, we have a door in every classroom going outside, and we've made ample use of that. And that's been a wonderful, wonderful thing. Our classroom isn't just in that tiny building, and it never was. From the day it opened, the outdoors, back when that old wooden play structure was there that some of you remember, it's always been an emphasis. Some of you might have had skinned knees there, and have many stories that would be a lot of fun to hear someday, by the way. So we're just very pleased and very proud, and we are very thankful to both our central office and all of our parents. We are open and doing great learning in our school right now, just like we always have, and maybe in some ways more innovative and more invigorated than we had. We're always improving. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Briggs-Hill. I'll kind of get to wrapping up here. Just wanted to also share with you that when I first started as the superintendent, Board of Education asked to really do a walkthrough at the time of our facilities. And I just wanted to share with you all that through those walkthroughs, we really found it a priority, and one of our strategic outcomes is that all students and staff will learn and thrive in clean, caring, safe, inclusive, STEM, and arts integrated environments that are current, dynamic, collaborative, exciting, and creative. And as we went through those walkthroughs, really started to see that some of the deferred maintenance that we have had to move through, just because that is sometimes the nature of schools, is that you do push back some other projects when something big comes up. And we have moved through a master facility plan. I can tell you that the district really hasn't had one of these since the last bond. And the last bond was just paid off in November, so everyone should see a bit of that on their property tax starting for this sort of 6-month period or year period, however those come through. But I do want to share with you that this master facility plan is posted on our website. Of course, one of the appendix is about 150 pages. The other, Appendix B, is 800 pages. So not anything that anyone wants to go through. I can tell you that our schools are in places where it's just time for them to receive some updates, some improvements. And so I just wanted to share with you that we did submit a BEST grant, and this is to the Colorado Department of Education, and it is a matching grant where our match is at about 68%. So just wanted to let you all know about that. As opportunities come up for you all to be a part of these conversations, I'll continue, Jane, to reach out to you and the other board members so we can make sure that we're communicating with all of you. So exciting opportunity for us. We won't know about the BEST grant until June, but I'll keep you all posted. We have a couple of partnerships that I just think are important, where there's many that we have, but some new partnerships that have emerged through this pandemic, and this is just a small list. AmeriCorps, some volunteers that have been supporting with the great work. TESSA, just in terms of just supporting our students who may have domestic violence and other circumstances at home. Peak Education is an opportunity for our students to pursue college, especially first generation college students. And so we're looking forward to where those partnerships will go. And then just the last couple parts that we're now in our choice enrollment process. We are still a school district that has about 48% of our students who do choice in. And I can tell you that Pass Elementary School is such a desirable entry place because of what the school has created for students and for staff and for parents. And so we just wanted to let you all know that that is our time right now for where we are as a school district, and making sure that the students that are choicing in, their families also align to our core values of relationships, deep learning, and opportunity. So I just wanted to share with you, at the bottom of this flyer, you can see some of the great opportunities that we offer. And as I mentioned earlier, that flywheel is that we are small. We can do things that most districts can't do, and or many parents pay a lot of money to try to accomplish, but we get to do it in a small scale in a really loving, caring way. So the last part is I know that Chris and Joey Levy are really continuing the partnership with Green Box Arts, and we're looking forward to some summer camps, summer learning, making sure that the gaps that potentially were created through just the transitions that students have experienced over this year, that those don't happen. In fact, we close them even over the summer. And we're going to do that thoughtfully while providing some experiential opportunities for students, parents, and making sure that we give our teachers a good, solid break too throughout the summer. So with that, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for having us, and see if there's any questions that any of you might have.
All right, any questions, anyone? I'm always too quick to jump in, but I'm jumping in. Thank you both so much. You know, you guys know I have a special place in my heart for the Manitou District and for UPass. It's been part of my family for nearly 60 years now, so figure. So thank you for coming up tonight. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. And I'll wave to you tomorrow on Thursday when you drive by.
That's right, as I wave past.
For those who don't know, I'm always standing in the highway in the morning.
I can also offer too, and we are, you know, it's possible, and I heard you say earlier around your council, your board meetings, we also have our gym space. If you ever need any of those spaces for your meetings, just let us know.
Yeah.
That's great to know. Great to know. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, board, any questions? Seeing none, thank you guys for coming up, Elizabeth and Chris, and we'll move on in our agenda.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Good night. The next item is item 5, now 5, consideration of managed parking request for a proposal. As we get started, let me just make a couple of statements. Despite the propaganda everywhere, this proposal is not about parking meters. We have not proposed parking meters. We have no intention of putting in parking meters. That is not.
Sorry. That's fine.
Also, I was on the hard work. Also, the proposal is just that. It is a very rough proposal. It is showing what a proposal can be. It is not accurate for roads. And this is why it's here for discussion tonight. So, Angie, would you like to begin with this, please?
My apologies, I was on mute. Absolutely. So here we've got the memo in the packet, really outlines step by step what we're asking the board to consider and address this evening. Ultimately, all we're asking is that the board consider approval of the request for proposal. The request for proposal would then be posted tomorrow. It would stay open for more than 2 weeks. Staff would engage in contract negotiation. There is a very rough draft. I'd like to make that clear that it's a very rough draft. So I know someone in comment mentioned that it said 36 months and that there was no escape clause. Those things obviously would be sent over to the attorney as recommendations. It is supposed to say 48 months and a pilot, but regardless, cancellation within 7 to 30 days, I believe, was what we discussed at the last meeting. So ultimately, we're just asking that the board consider the request for proposal. The other items were in there just so that we're being totally transparent about where we are, where we're going with this. Once we begin negotiations with a parking management third-party company, they would also provide input on these, and the contract would impact the way that all of this reads. So, and it would all go through our attorney and then be brought back before the board in a full package on the 6th of April, which is our next meeting. So we're just asking for everyone to look at the RFP, and that's the next step ultimately.
All right. Todd, I know you had some input on this RFP. I'd like you to go through some of that and then we'll circle around to the board.
Yeah, I did have several comments, and keep in mind I'm looking through this through the lens of trying to identify if there's any risk for the town, at least in my opinion. I've emailed the full set of comments into the town. Just some real quick highlights. Say, for example, in section 1D, do the operating expenses and exclusions create additional costs for the town? Section 3, again, I think we've already identified the term that the Board of Trustees identified versus the term that's currently in the draft agreement. Section 3B is basically a termination section based upon non-performance. I would recommend that we consider adding a suspension section that reads something similar to, should expenses for the parking program exceed profits for either the town or the parking company, this agreement shall be suspended. All fees and expenses paid up to the time of the suspension, and then the parties agree to meet and decide the next steps. In section 4, it has some statement in there that says the management fee shall be calculated. I'm recommending that you add in based upon and limited to gross revenues from parking. And then there's a couple sections in here that kind of look like the town would have to pay a management fee plus expenses. And a couple of comments are related to that. This is one of them. How do the expenses that the town is obligated to pay in section 4I relate to the management fee? And then either in section 5A or 5B, I thought we probably ought to add some language that the parking company is responsible for what I call PII security, personally identifiable information. That's like credit cards. Someone hacks their credit cards, they need to be the ones that are responsible for that. Obviously, section 7 needs definition for Green Mountain Falls. Again, section 14, getting into this town responsible for potentially fees and expenses. Is the staffing cost included in the management fee? And that's section 14 gets into the town requiring additional staffing. And my suggestion is if the cost of staffing is an expense to be paid by the town, then it really needs to be approved ahead of time before they go ahead and add that expense, add that staff, and then increase our expenses. And then section 16A and B, I thought that we probably ought to have language stating that the insurance should be part of the parking company operating expenses. And that's just kind of a quick summary. And like I said, I really tried to go through it and with a lens of, okay, did I see any risks for the town? So yeah, I've sent the full copy in. So yeah, you have all the comments. Some of the comments are not that significant. Others maybe, I don't know. So yeah, but that's really all I had.
All right.
What about, sorry, Madam Mayor, may I?
Please.
Thank you for sending that over to me. There was some really good feedback in there, and that it will be considered. I did want to also correct myself. I said 48 months, and what I meant to say was 24. So there, I'll bow out now. Thank you.
Or do you have any questions for Mr. Dixon on any of his suggestions? I want to make sure that you've seen what he sent over. Seeing none, Angie, I had asked you specifically if you would bring up the memo so that everyone could see what we were discussing, because you had referred to some of the feedback you had gotten that had addressed some of the feedback from the town. So if you would just address some of those things in this memo, maybe we can understand a little more.
Absolutely. So the memo goes step by step through each of the consultant's recommendations. This portion here where it says general recommendations and managed parking recommendations, each with 5 numbered bullet points. Those are the points that were approved at the last meeting on February 16th. And then as we go through the memo, it addresses any additional recommendations by the consultant. Ultimately, what we're asking for this evening is that the board consider approval of the draft managed parking request for proposal, or the RFP. That would be posted tomorrow if that's approved this evening. And we would be collecting proposals from a third-party management company. The other 2 items in here, the draft parking services agreement and the draft ordinance, those are very rough drafts. We just want everybody to see sort of where we're starting out. This is starting point number 1. And there'll be a lot of feedback and input by town staff, by the town marshal, by the board of trustees. Obviously, Todd sent in some really great comments. All that'll be considered. Before the board tonight, also, we're asking that they consider these other 2 points, these additional recommendations of the consultant here, items 1 and 2 on the screen now. Item 1, include an escape clause in the contract in case the fees for parking services exceed revenue generated. And item 2, consider the gross revenue split with the contractor during the trial period. So these items are before the board for consideration, discussion. yes or no, any input. And then the rest of the memo goes through additional points. So we could probably start with those initial points if you'd like to, and just move through it and address each one at a time, if that's okay.
Why don't you do that?
Okay, so the additional recommendations from the 2 points that I just read off there, John is also here to answer any questions or discussion that you might have about those. But the first one, include an escape clause in the contract in case the fees for parking services exceed revenue generated. Is that something that you all are interested in pursuing, or that you're in favor of doing?
I think it makes sense.
I would say yes.
Yes.
Okay, and then item 2, we have consider a gross revenue split with the contractor during the trial period. This would avoid the situation where the contract needs an appendix to dictate cost.
It will, Angie, what I was recommending is that you'll take the gross revenue from the parking facilities that's generated, and you'll have an appendix of cost from the contractor selected that would be labor costs, cost of equipment, whatever they feel is necessary to include and you guys agree upon. And then the net proceeds, that would be the split revenue. So that way they can pay their costs, which will probably mean that you will have no upfront capital outlay to install equipment or to buy technology. And then you can split the net. What I would recommend is that their company provide the board with an accounting of cost and expenses every board meeting or however often you guys do bills. And then the board would approve that expenses and pay it like any bill.
Yeah, again, I think that makes a lot of sense.
And my apologies, this here in the memo appears to be a really great copy and paste faux pas on my behalf. So thanks for your patience, everybody. Does everybody else feel like that makes sense as well? Or what are your thoughts, comments, questions for John or myself?
Sure. So I agree with having both the escape clause and kind of the financial things that we've talked about. I did have some concerns about, I think, had a lot of concerns about the term limit. We talked about the recommendation of 2 years, and I was in agreement of looking for RFPs because the majority of people said that they were comfortable with exploring paid parking. But just given the way it looks like we're committing to a system rather than having a pilot program to gather data. And so my request would be, could we limit it to 1 year with the option to renew? So just so we can get more data and see if it's really working with our community.
I think when you talk to the parking community, the 2-year thing, if you're asking them to do the capital outlay for the technology, is what is probably going to be desired, just because the outlay for this technology is probably in the neighborhood of $250,000 to $300,000. Most of the parking companies will do that based on the modeling that will exist for Green Mountain Falls. And you can always put in a clause like Mr. Dixon stated that will make sure that that you always can get out. There's different kinds of escape clauses than we have discussed as well. And that could be something you include based on what your legal representation and board are comfortable with. But I would recommend 2 summers, just because then if there's any abnormalities as well, and we have a COVID summer coming up, we would have a potential to look at what a COVID summer looks like versus a regular summer. And you could have a better idea quantitatively of what the data looks like because you'd have year over year.
Typically, it does take a solid 2 years to gather enough data in regard to parking and for traffic data for it to be reliable.
And then my other question is that, there's been a lot of talk and concern about the look and feel of having meters. And I've heard, multiple times that we're not seeking meters. So can you just explain in general what it would look like to not have a metered system?
Yes, ma'am. There's a couple different possibilities. One thing to remember is that technology moves very quickly and nobody likes meters. So there's actually quite a few ways to tackle this issue. The first is you can have completely contactless phone payments where somebody calls a number and they give the information and then you can be issued an invoice, or if you feel comfortable, you can put your credit card number in there. Lots of communities don't do that just because of the comfort issue and the privacy, but you can have the company send you an invoice through a system like that. Other companies use QR codes and then they just go into an online payment system where those payments are processed. Some communities use ambassadors on the street that can take cash, although most tourists don't use cash in that way when they're parking for this purpose. So sometimes that's, I think ours usually typically take less than $5 a day for the whole system. So that is something we want to have available to our people because we always want to be able to take cash because this is the United States and we want to take all legal tender. So that is something that we try to accommodate, but we just don't make very much. That's not usually how people use the system. You can also get kiosks, and I think for Green Mountain Falls, that might be a really interesting solution. So essentially what you would have is a computerized kiosk, but that could include trail maps and maybe a reservation system for restaurants and information about the community. We're installing some that will allow folks to pay their utility bills at the kiosk. They can broadcast free Wi-Fi. They can do anything that you can do with a computer. And those kiosks could be located in centralized locations so that if you're, like, for instance, at the parking lot by the lake, you may have 2 kiosks there or 1 kiosk. It really depends on the aesthetic needs of the community. And one of the reasons I didn't make a very specific recommendation about kiosk is that there's so many options available that you guys should really work with your contractor when you get to that point to determine what's best. But the options range from nothing at all to a couple of, very tasteful looking kiosks that could be wrapped and solar powered and those kinds of things, or just people taking money on the street. So really whatever is most appropriate and what makes your community feel welcoming, you can do. Our restaurants actually keep little tablets in the on premises. So people can pay in the restaurants, they can pay anywhere pretty much. We just try to accommodate them wherever they are and whatever they might have handy. But meters are almost never used anymore. There's no, meters would create issues for your community, I think. I think beside the aesthetic look of it and the welcoming factor, just maintaining and managing them and the climate and how spread out they would be cost prohibitive and probably not a good idea. So I cannot imagine any contractor putting meters in your community.
Or even proposing to do so. And I do want to point out as well that in the RFP, it does state that they need, any installation recommendations that are proposed would need to fit within the look and feel and the authentic look and feel of the town of Green Mountain Falls, and meters just would not do that. And ultimately that's going to be up to the Board of Trustees at the end of the road here.
I had a question about marked spaces. None of our parking spaces are marked. I assume that would be an issue. I mean, how do you know if somebody's, is it just like an area that they're paying for?
So imagine a dog with a collar that limits it to a geographic area that, and we don't shock our dogs anymore, but maybe gives it a beep if it goes out. What the parking company will do is use GPS to determine these geographic areas where vehicles can be. Within that geographic area, they link it to a database, which is accessed by basically what they'll do is they'll link the license plates that are registered into the system into the database. That means it's a completely contactless parking methodology. For a resident, it means you don't have to go get a sticker or a placard unless your town wants to do that. And I think for short-term rentals in your town, that may be a good idea to consider as a use case for people who are coming and going. Like maybe they have 6 placards all the time, so they don't have to be entering people into the system. And those placards would be recognized as valid if they're parked in the lots, if that's what you guys decide to do. But for the majority of people, they'll be in like an Excel database, essentially, the license plate, make, model. And if it's paid, it's basically green. If it's not, it's red. And so they can very easily and quickly check without spending any money whether or not somebody is paid to be in that area. Now, one thing that I made a recommendation about this was very light. It wasn't a big focus of conversation, but that time limit when parking starts to escalate, it should reset at some point in your parking lot. So some communities say that should be every 24 hours. Usually those are communities with more parking resources. I would recommend that if somebody leaves a lot, like say they go to breakfast and they leave the lot, that time that they have should reset after like 3 hours so that they can come back for dinner as well, because that will promote coming to breakfast and dinner for free. That's a really important piece of this, because you have such limited parking. We need to artificially create some ways to get people back down to the low end. What we really want to do is encourage people to move their car so that we address the problems that we identified.
So we don't need to make any changes on the ground?
No.
Okay.
You'll have people walking. I think that's going to be the biggest change, is you'll have ambassadors. I would recommend you brand them to look like Green Mountain Falls image, like whatever that branding looks like. And I think you guys have a lot of people who are really good at that work. And they'll be walking around and directing people and making sure they know what to do. That'll probably be the biggest visual impact change. The kiosks, even, they can be wrapped, they can be modified from a design perspective. So you could have your, you know, those of your community that have more artsy kind of backgrounds, design them to make them look appealing. And maybe even the kids at the school, maybe they could do a project where you get them, you know, they draw them and they wrap them in vinyl one time, and they could be a cool project from that perspective. So there's a lot of little opportunities to really make this a unique program.
One thing I'd be really interested to see, because we've heard a lot about it over the years, is having this system also improve our Wi-Fi.
Mm-hmm.
The Wi-Fi is a great opportunity, not only for the parking, but for the trails. And it would be a great way to be able to say, oh, this trail is closed, or mountain lion activity spotted in this area, so that when they interact, then that information is readily available, and it's not from some website that may be accurate and current or may not be, because we know how that works.
From an administrative standpoint, it's super cool because you can update one interface, and it updates Facebook, Twitter, whatever you want, signage in town, parking kiosks, all of it. You can do it from one place. Messaging is consistent, and it can be beautiful, like however you design it, because it's just HTML essentially for, you know, a web page basically is all you're doing. And these kiosks could function in a lot of the same ways that we've talked about the Welcome Center functioning. And I think it could be a big benefit. Wi-Fi is not that expensive from a municipal perspective to broadcast. There's some security concerns you have to be careful about, just because anybody with unsecured Wi-Fi is, you just have to be careful these days. But we have that in our community, and it turned out to be a huge benefit in COVID. We're very similar to you, where we have some rural areas with no internet access. So we were able to do some stuff with the kiddos at school when they were on virtual learning, because we happened to be able to create free Wi-Fi in some of our public spaces with the parking program. And so I think you could do it in one of two ways. It could broadcast from the kiosks. You could also broadcast it from a, you know, from a bigger antenna if you had a location that had a broadband connection that was stable and all of those kinds of things. So there's some opportunities there for sure that wouldn't be very expensive and would definitely help tourists in your town.
And the other thing I'd like to emphasize about this program, no matter which way it goes, is that this isn't set in cement. So when we have programs like Bronx Day, or we have any other town event, we don't have to pay for parking that day. This is up to us, and we can manage that. It could be as simple as on the application that they file, they ask for free parking on festival day.
Yeah, Mayor, that's absolutely correct. And that's what we do. You can change it even, you don't even have to have it on or off. You could say it's free up to 5 hours one day, and it's free up to 2 hours one day, or whatever. You can literally rewrite this thing in 2 seconds and make it work. The biggest thing to consider in that area is your public information, because you want it to be consistent and reliable, and you want to make sure people don't have to work too hard to get it. So that's just kind of like a best practice though. But in all reality, if you have, when Bronx Days happens, you can dictate any kind of aspect that you want about this. You could give people $1 if you really wanted to.
All right. Well, with this information and with the knowledge that this is a rough RFP, and we will be revisiting this again, and we will still have further discussions on what this agreement is going to be, Board, do you have any further discussions before move to approve this managed parking request for proposal?
I have a question about where does the RFP get posted and how do we find the vendors? Are there specific avenues that we go down with that?
Absolutely. So all proposals of the town are posted on our website as well as BidNet, which is sort of a universal place where bids are, requests for proposals are posted. It's called, again, BidNet. And it's where contractors go to look for this sort of thing. In addition, we have had some contractors out there that have reached out to us specifically in interest of managing our parking in Green Mountain Falls. At least 3 of them have reached out. They're quite interested in putting in proposals. And so once those are posted, we'll also let them know that those are posted and that the proposal period is open. So I anticipate that we'll get at least 3 proposals, at least.
Okay, good, thank you.
Given how rough the draft is and all of Todd Dixon's comments, and the idea that it would be posted if we approve it, should we continue this so that we can see the revision before it goes out?
So the RFP itself is not a rough draft. The rough drafts are these items here that say draft, which are the parking services agreement and the draft ordinance. So those are the 2 items that are rough drafts, and those are not being considered. We're not requesting any sort of proposal at all or approval of those tonight. All we're requesting is approval of the managed parking request for proposal so that we can seek begin collecting proposals from third-party management contractors. The draft parking services agreement and the ordinance, that is still very much rough and to be negotiated between a contractor. Attorneys need to look at that more. We would take Todd's comments into consideration. Those were excellent comments. Any comments that the board might have tonight on those before we come back to you with that final package on 4/6.
So the request for proposals is just this 1 to 5 or 4.5 page document that basically is a request for proposals. Describes some of the town, the project budget and timeline, inquiries and addenda, project overview, submittal requirements, qualifications, method of evaluation, resources, and a little bit about town. That is what would be going out. What's up there right now?
I'm sorry, I keep scrolling through all these pages and I'm not really sure exactly what the number of months that agreement, the RFP says, is asking for.
So the RFP is just this short portion of the document. It's 4 or 5 pages long. And all that this does is ask third-party parking management companies if they would like to submit a proposal for managed parking or managing parking in GMF. And then it outlines, the background of the study that we just did, and just asks them if they would be willing to submit a proposal to Green Mountain Falls for managed parking.
For 12 months, for 24 months, rather?
Even asking for that on this request for proposals, that's just in an addenda. Although I think we're pretty much agreed on 24 months right now.
We could certainly specify 24 months in the RFP. I could add that in if you'd like.
I don't know if it makes a difference to the companies if they know that that's what we're looking at.
There are documents that are considered resources. There's a list of resource documents in this RFP, and that one of the resource documents is the comprehensive plan. Another one is the parking and signage study, which outlines all those recommendations from the consultant. There's a few other documents as well. But there are the resources are all there, and it would be up to the parking management company to review that and submit something that fits in with the guidelines and recommendations set forth therein.
Okay, so my understanding that the timeline of 36, 24 months, whatever, is not part of the outline, the guidelines?
It is in there. It's in there.
Okay.
I think what it is, Catherine, is that the RFP is for them to determine what they can do for us and for them to make a proposal and then for us to review it and make the decision.
Right.
So nothing's set in stone as far as the total number, but the number we talked about was 24 months just to get some good data. And I think 36 months would be okay too, depending on how we move forward with it. But it's just a matter of getting the data and so that they know what we're looking for.
So it's not something that needs to be specified at this time.
Would be finalized in the final contract.
Okay.
But it is in the list of recommendations. So when they review those recommendations and they're preparing their proposal, they would likely include that in there.
Ms. Spring,
Thanks.
you also may want to remember, not you may want to remember, that's the wrong way to say that, but you want kind of to Mr. Bratton's point in the last meeting, you want to have some flexibility for the contractors to give you the best proposal they can based on the scope of service that you outlined in this document. And so that way, what I think is going to happen is they're going to pay for the capital outlay of this program, so you don't have to. That's why I recommended the pilot program. And many of the companies in Colorado will do that. And so I think this is a really important point, whether it's a 2-year program or a 3-year program, but that is something that will be determined at contract, and you guys don't have to sign anything as a board. You have that final approval. So I think that in the request for proposals, the important point is that it reflects the scope of service that your community is generally looking for, with enough flexibility that a contractor can say, hey, I can use the free market and make a little bit of money here and provide you with a really great service.
Okay, thank you.
And then you all can ultimately choose the best thing that's for the community.
All right, board, anything further?
I think, we know a lot of what the community's concerns are, and I think we don't really know what's on the table at this point. So I think it's, I think it would be good to see what the offers are, to see what types of concepts people can bring to us, to see if it fits in line with our community so that we can make an adequate decision. And if the proposals, if they're not in line, then we don't have to commit to them. But we kind of don't really know what all the options are, I feel like, until we get some offers.
Right.
Exactly. I think you're exactly right about that. We don't know what we don't know. And I don't think it's wise for us to just say absolutely not when we don't know everything that's out there. I think let's have a look at the contracts. Let's see what people want to do. If it doesn't work for our town, we're not committed to any of these. But if we don't ask, we'll never know. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. We might stand to gain here. So, thinking of the health of the town and the quality of life. With that, taking everyone's comments in, I would move that we proceed with submitting the managed parking RFP.
Second.
If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
So let's look forward to seeing what people do, see what they can do for them, get some fresh eyes on this. So see what happens. Item 6, consideration of revocable permit. I'm having terrible glasses problems tonight, so switching here. This is 2021-01, resolution 2021-09 for grading and construction of a retaining wall in the right-of-way south of 10330 El Paso Avenue. Julia, do you have a minute to jump on?
I'm sorry, Mayor Newberry, I didn't understand your question. You broke up.
So we just brought up the revocable permit for 10330 El Paso Avenue. The question before us is a revocable permit. If you can just give a brief background on why we need a revocable permit.
Yes, this is for, the Planning Commission reviewed this at the February 9th meeting and recommended approval of this revocable license, which would be passed by resolution. And it would bring a retaining wall that's built in the right of way, was built in fall 2020 into compliance. The commission, I concur, and the commission recommended, given the history and the work that was done, that town engineer review this.
And has the town engineer reviewed this?
No, because this is a revocable license and would be passed by resolution, I need direction from the board to determine whether the engineering review would would be a condition of approval. My apologies. Or if once the engineering review is conducted and if the engineer recommends approval, if the board would approve the resolution after. Sorry, I'm tongue-tied.
But we can move to approve that this is provisionally approved if our secondary engineer approves, correct?
Yes.
Or do you have any questions about either the revocable permit or the resolution? I am hearing none.
Hello, this is Court.
Court, hello, Court.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, how are you doing?
What was good? Originally, then let me give a little explanation. And I'm sure from Julia, but what happened was my original property lines were like to the power pole, and that was done like 10 years ago. And then when I had Watts Consultants come out, it went to the north, and they're like 1.5 feet difference. So when I originally laid it out, I was off of my old lines, and the line was right at the power pole. So that's where I started it. And the reason that I did all that is to shore up where the electrical disconnect is and where the gas line is. It's kind of right there. The way that those new lines are, they're right out into the drive, or just behind north to the of the property line. So that's why it's on there. It's only out in there in about 1 foot, but it's as close as I could get it back as I could because of the way the power pole is and the existing one over there next to me. So that's how I did it. If that makes any sense. Like you'd have to have like the pictures I sent to you.
No, we got them. They're in our packet, Court. I appreciate it.
Okay.
All right, Court, do you have?
Yeah, the reasoning, you know, with when Watts came out and did that, I was like in shock, kind of like the way, I don't know whether it's the satellites or whatever, but the one that I had done is like 1.5 feet off from the original, the ones Watts did. So there was really no explanation to it, but that's just the way it is now.
No, I get it. I think a lot of us have property like that right now.
Yeah, everybody I've talked to, it seems like it's changing up. Even my old lines in the back, they changed, and it's like, how could that be off too? So I don't know.
I know, I hear you.
So it's not impeding anything, you know. We still got 25 foot out there that a car can come up, you know. I just did the best and most common sense way of putting that up, you know.
Sure, I understand. So, Board of Trustees, in front of you is the question for the revocable permit for grading construction and a resolution 2021-09. Do you have questions for either Julia or Cord on this?
I have a question. So the engineer hasn't signed off on it. Is that correct?
So our engineer is swamped right now.
Okay.
And so he hasn't been able to, although it is before him. And we can approve this provisionally. The other thing we need to do is set the fee for the revocable permit. Looking at my many pages.
And this is an annual fee?
It is an annual fee because it is in the right of way.
This is a licensing fee that you would set right now, and in 2021, it could be revisited. I'm sorry, 2022.
And the fee schedule is a scale ranging from 100 to 400, and that covers initial staff review and PC and Board of Trustees review. After the first year, the applicant must renew prior to December 31st with a fee also set by the board, and it's processed administratively without public hearing unless the clerk receives an objection.
And the fees for the engineer are paid by?
That's a pass-through cost that it goes, there's just a pass-through. The applicant pays directly to our engineering.
Okay.
So we have 3 steps. We have the revocable permit, we have the resolution, we have a fee to set.
And we can do this in one motion?
Let's do it in 3 for clarity.
Okay. We want to start with revocable permit?
Let's do. I'm sorry, Margaret, did you have a question?
I have a quick question. What's the purpose of having such a wide range in the fee scale? Because it makes it a little difficult to come up with a number, I think. Because you said it was between 100 and 400?
100 and 400. Angie, can you address that just a little bit?
Absolutely. So the fee schedule that range was created in an effort to cover the costs of employee time and review time, depending upon the permit. So there's a pass-through cost with the engineer that passes straight through. We're not involved with that. But the way the code is currently written, that there's a differentiation in the amount of time that it takes to process those applications. And
okay.
Yeah.
And what amount of time has been spent on this? I think that'll help us to determine where we go on the scale?
I can answer that. I did make, am I on here?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I did make a recommendation in the staff report for an initial review time, because this one was a compliance issue that did take my time, town manager and Marshall Hodges. So I did make a recommendation, and I think that the fee could be significantly lowered on the annual licensing basis. If the town clerk could pull up my memo, it would be really helpful right now.
Initial licensing of 250.
That's the one. So the recommendation conclusion says staff has reviewed the materials, concurs with planning commission recommendation. The structure, site plan, and grading is evaluated by town engineer to prevent off-site drainage and erosion. Staff recommends an initial licensing fee of $250. The licensing renewal will be reevaluated by staff in December 2021 when the amended zoning code has been established by ordinance, creating a process for all revocables to remain in compliance. So that is a reminder too that we will be looking at the codes again as zoning codes are being rewritten. So, Catherine, you were making a motion. And you're muted, so you wasted all that time making a motion.
Sorry.
There you go.
Just to be clear, it's the resolution that's involves the condition of the engineer's report.
The resolution can
But
be provisional.
Okay, so we can go ahead and approve the revocable permit 2021-01.
Right, second, if there's no further discussion, all those in favor of the revocable permit, vote by saying aye.
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 And that motion passes. The second is a resolution 2021-09, which also includes the fee schedule. So we can make that in one motion.
So I think on that, I'd like to move to approve staff recommendation and for the fee, but then for the renewable portion, are we doing that too?
The renewal will be revisited in December for that, but doesn't hurt.
Okay, I think as long as to know going forward, I think as long as there's no additional staff time involved, I'd like to move that the renewable portion is the low end of the fee.
Well, we may be changing the fees as we go into budget cycle, because zoning's going to be rewritten. So we probably don't want to set that now, but you probably do want to set the current fee, and you just did with staff recommendation.
Second.
If there's no further discussion.
I'm sorry, was that conditional with the engineer's approval?
And yes, to reiterate, this is condition that Kiowa also approves this. So this is provisional.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, vote by saying aye.
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 And that motion passes. We'll look forward to an engineer's report. But if it can be done, through staff. Item 7 is consideration of grading permit GR 2021-02 for retaining wall and erosion control at 10860 Orris Street. I believe we are in a similar situation here, pending engineer's report. The background of discussion says the grading was conditionally approved, Planning Commission, with the condition of town engineer reviewing to confirm erosion control measures are sufficient. Or do you have any questions for our planner on GRA 2021-02? So hearing none, I would make a motion that this too is approved with the condition that our independent engineer also reviews and approves.
Second.
No further discussion. All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
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 Motion passes. I is a recommendation to approve a new member to the PRT committee.
I'm sorry, Jane. I'm sorry. Did you name a fee in that motion?
There isn't a fee because it is not a revocable permit. So it's just a conditional approval.
Okay. Okay.
And the fee that they will end up paying on this is to the engineer.
Yeah, I apologize. I was on the wrong page.
Nope, I'd rather have a question than miss something, so I appreciate that. Keeps everybody on their toes.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is a recommendation to approve a new member to the PRT committee, Jay Kita. Board, you may remember we have seen Jay's name in front of us before to be on PRT advisory committee. I don't know if Mr. Kita is on tonight. I'm looking real quick. Seeing he's not, let me speak on his behalf. Mr. Kita is a very active trail runner and has applied a couple of times to be on committees and also been recommended to be on PRT committee. And you have his application in front of you. Parks Rec and Trails Committee also recommended that he be vice chair. Gianni, do you have anything to add?
Just that he was very active with the startup of the Trail Ambassador program. He gave great feedback. He was very involved and happy to participate. And he was present at the last PRT committee meeting, and he gave great feedback and was very ready to volunteer and lend some help out. So I think he would be a great addition.
So thank you, I appreciate that. Board, do you have any other questions or statements about Mr. Kita? I would move to approve that we get the recommendation of the PRT committee and appoint Jay Kita.
A second?
Second.
All right, if there is no further discussion, all those in favor vote by saying aye.
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 Welcome, Mr. Kita. Matt, if you would just let him know that he's been voluntold that he's on this committee.
I will.
All right, thank you. Item 9 is recommendation of approval of officers. And we just did that in one fell swoop. Actually, we didn't. The approval of officers to the PRT committee, Chair Jesse Stroop, Vice Chair Jay Kita. Or do you have any questions about their appointment to Chair and Vice Chair? Seeing none, I would accept their recommendation.
Mayor Newberry?
Yes, please.
I also want, just real quick, share public comment for related to this. Just wanted to thank Rebecca Ochke, I'm pretty sure I said that correctly, for her time as our vice chair. She did a really great job while she was running things, and she stepped up when we didn't have a chair on PRT. So I just wanted to make sure she got a shout out.
You know, I really appreciate that because I think you worked with her more closely than any of us. I know she's been a dedicated volunteer on trails, and she is very passionate about this. I hope she remains active and part of PRT in some form or another.
She is still a member, so I'm very excited to continue working with her.
That's great. She has good input.
Are you the secretary now, Matt?
I am.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
All right. So I made a motion that we accept their recommendation. Is there a second on that motion?
A second.
I'll second.
All those in favor, please vote by saying aye.
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 Chair Jesse Stroop, Vice Chair Jake Eno. Item 10 is recommendation to approve a new alternate to the Fire Mitigation Committee. If I'm not mistaken, however, he can be a full-time member as there is a vacancy. Unfortunately, on Fire Mitigation. And that applicant is Nathan Scott. His application is here in your packet. Board, do you have any questions, statements about Mr. Scott?
Dion tonight?
No.
We just get to talk about him because he's not on here.
I think it was just a formality that we wanted to see his application, but.
Yes, thank you guys for your patience with me, by the way.
It's all good. We learn as we go. I'd like to say I sure hope we can get some GIS work out of Nathan. I'll be real happy to see that happen.
Ann Esch has raised her hand to speak.
Ann, you may speak.
Well, I shouldn't just jump in, but I think I'm on the committee, and you know, it's just terrible that Dick is gone because he was a great leader and friend. But I wonder if you could make Nathan a permanent member. He would be such a wonderful addition. He's active in the community. He knows the town. He lives there and has so many other talents. So I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
I think it's the perfect opportunity since he would normally move in if we had appointed him as alternate before. He would move into the full-time position. So that just is kind of a logical step.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ann, and I appreciate your volunteering on that committee as well.
Sure.
So I would move to approve that we follow their recommendation and we have Nathan Scott be on fire mitigation.
I'll second that.
There's no further discussion. All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
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 So Nathan is voluntold that he's not alternate and he's actually full-time. Full-time. Thank you very much. Next item is consideration of a special event permit for Bronc Day. Margaret, do you want to introduce this?
Sure. So just basically, this is our application for Bronc Day. It's the 83rd annual, and we're looking forward to it, and we're planning just the same stuff. It may be still a little understated again this year with restrictions based on where they may be. But just, yeah, to just move forward so that we can keep our tradition alive.
I would make one adjustment to this special events permit application, just because it's not on here. We need to add a line that you're requesting for free parking for that day, since that is an all-day event.
Oh, absolutely.
Board, do you have any questions about this special events permit application? I'm looking at the checklist myself. Put on behalf of XP Chamber of Commerce. And we don't have a space on here for fees. Is that correct, Angie?
What was the last word for what?
Fees. For fees.
Oh, for fees.
Fees. Yeah.
Yeah, there was, you know, I did this stuff on the website for the application, and I talked with Matt on Friday because we had a couple of links that weren't quite connected together for the stuff. So, you know, this is what was actually online.
Yeah, and I see there's a line that says event permit fee and traffic control fee, but I don't have it in front of me what the fees are, because I wasn't that efficient. Matt, do you have access to that?
I do. I'm pulling it up as we speak. It just was taking me a sec.
Thank you very much.
So according to our 2021 fee schedule, special event fee, $500 a day or $150 an hour for a 2-hour minimum plus a $100 deposit, and then a traffic control fee of $100 an hour with a $2-hour minimum.
Margaret, do you know what you have paid in the past on this?
Generally, it's been the 500 and then the 200 for traffic control. And then anything additional based on what the needs are, we coordinate with Marshall Hodges for just any additional. Like last year, we didn't close the whole town down for a parade. We did a much smaller thing. And I think that's probably the biggest variable right now. Just not knowing what the restrictions are going to be, if we're going to be able to really do the big parade and close everything down, or if we'll do another small one like we did last year.
Okay, I think that can be determined as we go along. But basically, you paid 500 event and 200 traffic control. Is that right?
Correct. Correct.
I would move that we approve the special events permit application with the event and traffic control fees as stated.
Second.
Or do you have further questions or discussion on this item? Seeing none.
I'm sorry. I don't know when these fees are due, but hopefully closer to the date when we have a better idea of if we're going to need the traffic control and all that.
I think that's fair, and I
guess it can be funded if we don't need it.
I'd encourage the applicant to just keep us apprised as things go forward, and if we need to adjust the fees, we can do so closer to the event. I don't think Margaret's going anywhere, so I don't think we need to make sure the fees are collected tonight.
No, we're good for it.
Yeah, I think we're pretty good for it, Catherine. All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion passes. Looking forward to another rock day. We had our great presentation from Manitou Springs School District, and the next item is correspondence. A letter from Murray-Dahl, Berry, and Renaud, and El Paso Teller County Authority Board meeting agenda. Does anyone have any questions from the board on either of these items? All right, hearing none, moving on. Moving on to reports. Trustee reports. I don't really have any report at this time other than my statement I made earlier. Catherine, do you have a report?
I just want to thank everyone in the community that helped support the CDB grant, CDBG, yeah. The support is really helpful, and I think that we were able to put together a really great proposal, and hopefully it's just the beginning of updating our parks and making them more accessible for everyone. So thanks again for all the input that we got from the community. It's really appreciated.
Well, thank you. I'm really excited to see that come to fruition. Well, think good thoughts, and I hope that comes through. It's a good thing for everybody. Margaret, do you have a report?
No, nothing additional right now.
Thank you. Gianni?
Just wanted to thank all of the PRT members. I know that they're restructuring a little bit, and I think they're really starting to get a good handle of the flow of how their meetings are going. And I know that one of the staff recommendations was that the PRT be really involved with helping kind of conceptualize a Trails Welcome Center. And so I'm just looking forward to working with them and having a lot of good communication about how that might best serve the community.
I think that would be great. And I think that could be a good and exciting thing. One thing I need to say about our committees right now, it's so exciting to see the interface with the board and wanting to be involved with what's happening with the board. It's a good and positive step. And I know that for myself, at least, I just love hearing what's going on and having an idea of everything else that's happening. And I appreciate that. And I assume that was your committee report as well, Deanne?
Yes, I believe Jesse is on if he wants to add anything.
Jesse, do you have anything to add, Mr. Chair?
Not at this time, Madam Mayor.
All right, I'll count on you the next time to have a report for me, maybe a slideshow. So the FMC annual plan of priorities that has been submitted. One question I do have for Fire Mitigation Committee, and just something to look into, just so we know going forward. Last year, we had allocated some money for fire mitigation above Belvedere, and unfortunately, they couldn't complete the project. I think they got one day in, and I kind of just want to know what happened with the rest of that money. If it was paid, if it wasn't paid, if we're contracted for more days. Because if we still have more days coming, that would be a nice start and something to get done sooner rather than later. So I don't know if anyone has any answers on that right now, but I would like some answers sometime on that.
Mayor Newberry, I've made a note. I'll discuss that with the Fire Mitigation Committee and also do some research on my end to share with you at the next meeting.
Excellent, and looking forward to that. Staff reports. Angie, anything further?
Absolutely. So I did touch base with Jesse's group and also Deanne Wu in regard to a citizen-led wayfinding signage task force. And they were both interested in building that group and working on that task force, which is really exciting. And I just wanted to bring that to y'all's attention and thank them both for being willing to take the lead on that. And I'm really excited to see what Parks Rec and Trails comes up with in regard to their ideas and the development of the Trails Welcome Center, and how that all pans out. And I did want to give one update to Liz Ives. She mentioned Olathe cleanup. Liz, if you're still on, hopefully, the backhoe is fixed. The skid steer broke shortly thereafter. And so there's a few things that just need to be touched up on that. And the Olathe, they will be able to continue cleaning up Olathe this week. So you will continue to see improvement there. And if I believe that you had some questions about parking in the comprehensive plan, and I'm more than happy to talk to you on the phone about that, either myself or John.
No, I don't need to talk to you. It was about the page 4, and I wasn't the only one who brought it up about that. It was obviously just a paste and copy from Idaho Springs, and so you said you're going to clean that up, and that's fine. And as far as Olathe, yep, as long as we're moving forward, that's great.
One day at a time.
All right. Angie, anything further?
I just want to thank everybody for working together. I see people collaborating more and more, and it's really nice to see folks coming together and starting to do what you all think is best for the community together.
Angie, we have a comment in the chat from Nancy Dixon about being involved with its town signage task force. If people are interested in being part of that, how would they connect or be able to participate?
I think just filling out the volunteer form on the website and sending that over or just shooting a quick email to us. But Nancy, you're on our list now, so you're stuck. So we'll have Matt reach out to you if you could provide Matt with your contact information. I know Jesse was interested in leading that citizen-led task force. If you wanted, you could also just reach out to Jesse as well. Whatever you're most comfortable with.
Great. Thanks for addressing that, you guys. Danny, thanks for catching that on the chat. Matt, do you have a report?
I only have one, and it's related to fugitive dogs. I got some, sorry, a little bit of laughs, why not? I got some comments from some residents that they hadn't got their dog licenses yet, and so I wanted to share the process for how we can make that happen. Please mail in your applications. They are available on our website for you to download and fill out. Please include the payment for $25. We can accept it via check, or if you'd like, you can call in and I can take care of you over the phone. And then I will get you your dog tag as soon as possible so we can minimize the amount of fugitive dogs we have in our community. So if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I usually have access to my phone 24/7, so I'm happy to discuss getting you a tag for your dog licenses as soon as possible. That's all I got.
All right, thank you. And try to make legal those fugitive dogs. Jesse's asking info for canine summer residents. We don't want summer fugitive dogs either, so be in touch with Jesse about that.
Will do.
Thank you. Virgil, do you have a report?
Just so y'all know, I have called in the U.S. Marshals on the fugitive dogs. They will be running around, and they will be arresting everybody with a fugitive dog.
We'll run a sting on that operation.
Sorry, y'all know me. I'm just a country boy. I tend to make fun of things and stuff like that. I do have some serious concerns about the parking issues and stuff like that. it kind of irritates me and kind of chaps my rear end that the media would lead with a parking meter as their intro into the story about parking in Green Mountain Falls.
Yeah.
I have made a career of 40 years of staying out of the media spotlight, but that is not right. It's misguiding and it's misinformation. There's a lot of misinformation about the parking plan that we have in place or that we're getting ready to put in place. And it kind of kills me that nobody's willing to talk about it. You go to the pantry and Billy Bob parks for 2 hours in front of the pantry while he eats his breakfast. He doesn't get charged a stinking thing. Not a thing. Not a penny, not a dime, not nothing. The whole problem with this boils down to rumor control, which there is none of, and a lot of, I don't know, forbearance, stuff springing up, just rumor upon rumor. Trust me, there will not be a parking meter in front of your house. Never will that ever happen, at least on my watch, because I will personally take them down. When things get out of hand and get out of control, as they did this last summer, where nobody could find a parking spot in town, there needs to be something done. I can't handle it. I can't do it on my own. I can't be out there 24/7 working 60, 80, 90 hours a week enforcing this stuff. I would hope that the town and that the citizens have a little bit of common sense and a little bit of working together. I mean, good gosh, we're a small town. And I love this town. I love this town with all my heart. It's like my hometown where I grew up and where I was born. And to say that we can't move forward and that we can't address things that are going on just because it's a small town doesn't make any sense to me. And I will shut up now, but trust me, if you have a fugitive dog, we are coming for you. Me and the U.S. Marshals.
So can I comment on that too, Virgil? I think part of the biggest problem here is the terminology that people are using, because it's not paid parking, it's managed parking. And I think we need to retrain ourselves in how we say it and what we look at it. And I'm looking forward to seeing the proposals because I want you to have some support.
Margaret,
and I'm feeling that this is going to be a great way to do that.
You're absolutely right. It's managed, not paid. There is not going to be a citizen in this town that has to, a citizen or a resident in this town that has to pay for parking. Everything in the press has been blown out of proportion, and they're saying parking meters are going up everywhere. It's not going to happen. I will take my personal truck and pull them down one by one if I have to.
Well, as exciting as that might be, I think we're going to try to avoid that. Although we probably get some people paying to watch you do that. And the one thing about managed parking, just like you were saying, it's 2 hours free. The third hour is $2. If you run a restaurant, we all know that if you have somebody sitting in your restaurant for more than 2 hours, you're losing money. And your people who depend on tips are losing money because you're not getting the turnover. So if you can guarantee by managing that you're turning over every 2 hours, the profit should increase for everybody. What this does is it will manage some of the people who do park all day, have a picnic there, leave their trash next to their car, and drive off. And that's something that we are going to change our attitude about. And I really appreciate everybody's support and work on this. It's not always easy. Change isn't always easy. And we don't know what change looks like until we at least attempt it. That's how we grow as people. That's how we grow as a town. And I thank everybody for their participation. I hope that sometime soon we are meeting in person again. But for now, we'll keep doing the best we can do. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, volunteers. Thank you, citizens. Thank you, employees. Appreciate you all. And if there's nothing further, let's adjourn this meeting, 8:56.
Have a great night, everybody.
You too. Magical.
Have a magical evening, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.